July 2nd, 1937, Amelia Earhart's final words crackle over the radio.
We must be on you. We cannot hear you.
Her Lockheed Electra vanished without a trace over the vast Pacific. 250,000 square miles scoured, nothing found. In the decades since, scattered clues have surfaced, fragments, hints, even bones, but nothing conclusive, nothing confirmed. Today, cutting-edge sonar, LiDAR mapping, and DNA analysis collide with the unsolved mystery. Why did Amelia Earhart vanish without a trace? And will science ever uncover the truth behind her disappearance? Amelia Earhart was born on July 24, 1897, in Atchison, Kansas. Curious, determined, and drawn to adventure, she discovered her passion for flying in 1920 after a short plane ride that changed her life. As soon as we left the ground, she said, "I knew I had to fly." She earned her pilot's license in 1923 and quickly broke records, becoming the first woman to fly solo above 14,000 feet, and later across the United States. In 1928, she crossed the Atlantic as a passenger and became a household name. But it wasn't enough.
A milker of the Atlantic won over the treacherous Pacific. Roaring into the Oakland airport, she brings to a triumphant finish her 2,400-mile hop from Hawaii after 18 hours in the air. 10,000 cheer the end of the epical flight as the Lady Lindy slides into a perfect landing with 2 records. The first woman to fly the Pacific and the first person to fly it solo. She receives one of
In
the
1932, flying solo from Newfoundland to Ireland, she became the first woman, and only the second person ever, to complete that journey alone.
And the plaudits of the world to a veteran of flights that have shown the way for aviation's progress. It's her most brilliant chapter in a 16-year aviation career.
More than just a pilot, Earhart was a writer, lecturer, and a champion for women in aviation. She helped found the 99s and used her fame to break barriers far beyond the cockpit. She had already made history, but in 1937, she set out to do something no one had ever done before: fly around the world at the equator. It would be her boldest journey, and her last. A narrow strip of coral, 2 kilometers long, flat, silent, surrounded by nothing but water, no trees, no buildings, no margin for error. This is Howland Island, a speck in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, a place you could fly over in seconds if you saw it at all. In 1937, it was nothing more than a refueling stop, a dot on the map. But for Amelia Earhart, it was the last known destination, the final pinpoint before she vanished.
Only a short time ago, Amelia Earhart checked over every detail of her $80,000 flying laboratory in preparation for her round-the-world flight. This was to have been her greatest achievement, a sky dash of 28,000 miles. With her husband, George Palmer Putnam on right, she discussed the hazardous course which had been plotted for her by Fred Noonan, the navigator who embarked with Miss Earhart upon this great flight, a flight which was to have marked her retirement to aeronautical research.
The plan was simple, at least in theory: fly around the world close to the equator, a route covering nearly 29,000 miles. The aircraft, a Lockheed Electra 10E, modified for long-range flight with extra fuel tanks and upgraded navigation equipment. The crew, Amelia Earhart, pilot and commander; Fred Noonan, navigator, expert in celestial navigation and Pacific routes. Amelia Earhart and her navigator Fred Noonan took off from Oakland, California, heading east. Their first stops were short: Tucson, Arizona, then New Orleans, and finally Miami, Florida. It was in Miami that Earhart officially announced her around-the-world flight to the press. From there, they crossed the Caribbean, landing in San Juan, then headed south to Paramaribo in Dutch Guiana, today's Suriname, before continuing to Fortaleza on the northeastern coast of Brazil. Next came the first major ocean crossing, from Brazil to Dakar, Senegal, across the South Atlantic. From West Africa, they turned inland, first to Gao, in the desert heart of Mali, then Khartoum in Sudan, and onward to Massawa on the Red Sea coast in what is now Eritrea. They crossed into the Indian subcontinent, stopping in Karachi, then Calcutta. From there, they flew southeast, reaching Rangoon in Burma, then Bangkok, Singapore, and Bandung, on the island of Java in the Dutch East Indies, modern-day Indonesia. Bandung was one of the longest layovers. The Electra underwent technical checks, and the landing gear was repaired. Next came Koipang on the island of Timor, the final stop before the Pacific. Then on June 29th, they reached Lae, Papua New Guinea. Next came the longest, most dangerous leg, Lae to Howland Island. Over 4,100 kilometers of open ocean. No landmarks, no radar, only radio, dead reckoning, and hope. It was the final stretch of their journey, and the one from which they never returned. This would be the final ocean crossing before heading back to the United States. She was almost home, but something went wrong. At 7:42 a.m. July 2nd, 1937, Earhart's voice crackled through the radio.
We must be on you. We cannot see you. The ice is running low.
Then, silence. The U.S. Coast Guard cutter Itasca, positioned near Howland Island, never made two-way contact. They saw nothing, heard nothing, no aircraft overhead. Despite days of intensive search by air and sea, no trace was ever found. Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan had vanished, somewhere between the sky and the sea. Over the year, only theories have surfaced. Some say Amelia Earhart crashed near Howland Island. The ocean swallowed everything. No wreckage, no signal, no trace. Others believe she strayed off course and was captured in the Marshall Islands, taken prisoner, silenced. And then there's Nikumaroro, a remote coral island lost in the Pacific. Flat, empty, forgotten. They say she landed there and died waiting. In July 2012, a team from TIGHAR, the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, returned to Nikumaroro. There, off the island's reef, their underwater drone captured video footage of scattered metallic debris, partially embedded in coral. The fragments match the possible structure of the Lockheed Electra, but no definitive identification could be made. It wasn't their first time on the island. TIHAR had been investigating Nikumaroro since 1988, following a trail of scattered clues. In 1940, British officer Gerald Gallagher reported finding partial human bones, a woman's shoe, and a sextant box beneath a tree on the southeastern tip of the island. The bones were sent to Fiji, measured, and originally classified as male. But in 1998, a new forensic analysis of the original data suggested the remains could belong to a tall, white woman of Northern European descent, possibly Earhart. Unfortunately, the bones themselves were lost. Other TIGHAR expeditions in 2007 and 2010 found items like bronze fittings, a zipper pull consistent with 1930 flight suits, and even a bone fragment, possibly part of a human finger. But DNA testing in 2011 was inconclusive. The fragment could not be confirmed as human, nor ruled out as turtle bone. In 2018, forensic anthropologist Richard Johns published a controversial paper. Using historical measurements in modern databases, he argued that the 1940 skeleton matched Amelia Earhart more closely than 99% of known individuals. But critics challenged his methods, pointing out the limited data and reliance on photographs. The claim remains debated. In late 2023, a new effort emerged from the private sector. Tony Romeo, a former U.S. Air Force intelligence officer and CEO of Deep Sea Vision, funded a deep-sea sonar search across 5,200 square miles of ocean near Howland Island. In January 2024, the company announced that their drone had captured a sonar image of an object resembling an intact aircraft, with a distinctive twin-tail structure, lying 5,000 meters underwater, about 100 miles from Howland. Initial excitement grew. Could this finally be the Electra? But on November 6, 2024, after 11 months of reanalysis, the company confirmed the truth. The object was a natural rock formation. Once again, the ocean had withheld its answers. She was supposed to land, refuel, fly home, step out of the cockpit to applause, headlines, history. Instead, she vanished. For decades, the Pacific has kept its silence. No wreckage confirmed, no remains identified. The story of Amelia Earhart hasn't faded, it's evolved. From a disappearance to a search that still haunts the horizon. And now, nearly 90 years later, we are still looking. Back to Nikumaroro, back to the ocean floor, back to a question that refuses to die. Was she lost to the sea or waiting to be found all along? Maybe history isn't buried. Maybe it's just out of reach. For now.
On this flight, really no bad weather at all except a few little rain squalls. I saw the moon and stars most of the night. Of course, in both flights, I was very glad to see land.